citizen.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert.
You have ignored us in the past and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses and we are running out of time.
Show us your faithfulness. Show us your trustworthiness. Show us your honesty. Prove us wrong. We desperately need you to prove.
Welcome, you're watching Race to Power with me, Ananya Datta. In this show, we will be with you from the start point to the end line, even if that means skimming through long manifestos and campaign speeches. Here's what we have lined up for you. Bangladesh has announced its election date, but the road to the polling day is looking extremely bumpy. There are worker strikes, protests, and blockades. Political parties are so polarized as they can get, and the voters have been left confused. Now, there is never a dull day in Pakistani politics, and it continues to be true. A party that had actively brought down the Imran Khan government is now eyeing to form an alliance. Stay tuned. Our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik will be joining us for more. Now, we are beginning this edition from Bangladesh, where the Election Commission has announced January 7th as the poll date. But in the backdrop of this, developments, protests and political unrest have once again gripped the nation. The BNP, which is the primary opposition party in Bangladesh, has initiated the fifth phase of a road and railway blockade. The latest 48-hour blockade began early Wednesday and is scheduled to end on Friday. Ahead of the blockade, on Tuesday, miscreants set 4 buses on fire in Dhaka's Mirpur area, triggering fresh tensions in the capital. But why is Bangladesh on edge? What are the opposition parties protesting? Let's break it down for you. For 2 weeks now, the BNP and several other opposition parties are making the same demands. They want Sheikh Hasina to step down, the Awami League government to quit power, and a non-partisan administration to oversee the elections. The demand stems from allegations that both the current government and the Election Commission of Bangladesh are orchestrating yet another manipulated election. Senior BNP leader Rahul Kabir Rizvi issued a stern warning to the government. He said, and I'm quoting here, "You have no option but to resign. Resign immediately without making excuses and transfer power to a non-partisan neutral government." Sheikh Hasina has been in power for 3 terms in a row. She is the longest serving Prime Minister of Bangladesh. And come general elections in 2024, Hasina will have completed 15 years in office. But Hasina's reign has been fraught with accusations and criticisms. Opposition parties and political activists have accused the 3-time Prime Minister of a slew of wrongdoings. The 76-year-old leader has been accused of running an authoritarian regime. Critics allege that Hasina has abused human rights and suppressed free speech and dissent. She also faces allegations of allowing extrajudicial encounters with security personnel, killing hundreds of political activists. Fingers are pointed at the Prime Minister for forced disappearance of opposition leaders as well. Now, interestingly, the fresh wave of protest against the Sheikh Hasina government coincides with the Election Commission announcing the general elections date. The EC declared that elections will be held on January 7th next year. Security personnel in Dhaka are on high alert as authorities anticipate political unrest and instances of violence following the announcement. Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Imtiaz Ahmed. He is a professor of international relations at University of Dhaka. Welcome to the broadcast, Mr. Ahmed.
Yes, thank you.
You know, before we saw just calls, then we saw protests, and now we are seeing blockades across Bangladesh. Do you think there will come a point where Sheikh Hasina will agree to step down?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, mainly because the blockades and the protests have not been as effective as people or as the opposition would want. In Bangladesh politics, you need millions of people to come on the streets, and not only in Dhaka, but throughout Bangladesh. Now, that has not happened. We don't see millions of people on the streets. Yes, there has been, protest, but as I said, it has not been as effective as the opposition would want, or a kind of protest which would make the ruling party or the government think differently. So I think we will be heading for election as usual.
Right. Mr. Ahmed, Sheikh Hasina has been often called the daughter of democracy. But at the moment, the incumbent Prime Minister is facing a slew of allegations, and very serious ones. She has been accused of human rights abuses, suppressing free speech, allowing extrajudicial killings, and also disappearance of opposition leaders. Now, you are someone who has been born and brought up in Bangladesh. Can you tell us how much of these allegations are actually true?
Now, in Bangladesh or in the South Asian context, allegations against ruling regimes, they have always been of that kind. Yes, there are areas where there are deficit, no doubt. But that deficit you even see in some of the developed countries. Even in the United States, you see a serious human rights abuse, particularly when it comes to Afro-American population and the minorities. Throughout South Asia, I would say that there has been issues with authoritarian structures, issues with minorities getting bashed, also human rights abuse. There are deficits, but one also need to see the other side of it, particularly when it comes to Bangladesh, the way Bangladesh has handled the pandemic, particularly COVID-19. A lot of people thought Bangladesh would not make it. At the same time, the Russian-Ukraine war, with all those things, kind of development and the growth. Yes, the growth has been, one would see, has benefited the rich more than the poor. But, we are living in capitalism. It's a capitalist world. So right. In that context, one can't say that there has not been any development. Some developments are spectacular.
Right. Mr. Ahmed, if we could focus now on the voters. The election date is set, of course. How are people of Bangladesh viewing this constant infighting and the polarization between the political parties?
You see, Bangladesh never had political stability. What we had for the first time since 2009 was regime stability. And one has to distinguish between political stability and regime stability. We never had political stability. Right after independence, there was political instability all through. So what we had is regime stability. Now, whether that would hold or not, one has to see on the election day, of course. But I think the ruling party and the government, they're also sensitive to the international attention. So I guess in the Westminster system, what you need is the participation of people, coming to the vote centers to vote. Now, if that can be ensured, I guess, the ruling party would say that we have succeeded in bringing, people to the polling booths. Now, whether that percentage would be high or low, I'm sure, the government, given the last two elections, the fair amount of criticism, so they probably would be more sensitive this time. So we have to wait and see. But I think the election will be held as casual, and we have to now see whether the opposition party, at least their members, would join the election or not. One can't rule that out.
That's the hope, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you so much for joining us here on Race to Power.
Thank you.
Let's now move across to the West, where the countdown has begun for another high-voltage race to power. This race, however, is in the eye of a legal storm. We are talking about none other than the 2024 US presidential race. Our focus tonight is on Republican frontrunner Donald J. Trump and his legal troubles. Now, Donald Trump is facing a slew of criminal charges, but in focus is the Georgia election interference case. Just to give you a quick recap, Trump is facing charges of allegedly conspiring to overturn the results in Georgia, where Joe Biden narrowly defeated him back in 2020. The district attorney on this case, Fannie Willis, made a rather intriguing statement that could severely affect the political environment for Donald Trump. At a Washington event, Willis said that the trial may drag on beyond the November 2024 election. She stated that the trial might not conclude till late winter of 2024 or even early as 2025. Now, what does this mean for the Republican favorite's bid? Will he be able to contest elections? It seems that running for president again might not be a problem for Donald Trump, because the DA's statement came hours after another key development that decided Trump's eligibility to contest elections. Just on Tuesday, a Michigan judge ruled that the former US president will remain on the state's primary ballot. The court dismissed a Civil War-era 14th constitutional amendment. Now, that petitioners were relying on to invalidate Trump's candidature. The latest ruling is the second time in a week that a state court declined to remove Trump from a primary ballot under the insurrection provision of the 14th Amendment. Trump's role in the January 6th Capitol Hill riots 2 years ago triggered a series of suits against him, with the aim of declaring him ineligible for the presidency. But so far, it seems safe to say that Donald J. Trump will be part of the 2024 presidential race. But this is where the matter gets complicated. On the one hand, several state courts are clearing Donald Trump to contest elections. On the other hand, the Georgia election overturn case against him is expected to drag on till after elections and are held, and a winner is declared. So the key question here is, what happens in a scenario where Donald Trump wins the election but gets convicted in the 2020 election overturn case just months later? How will the legal issues unfold for a sitting president if the scenario plays out in this manner? Now, in other news, politics is a marriage of convenience, with no permanent enemies or friends, but only permanent interests. This saying perfectly explains the current dramatic shift in Pakistan's politics. Imran Khan is behind bars. His party is in shambles, and Nawaz Sharif is back in the country, eyeing an electoral victory. But things might not be that easy for the three-time Prime Minister. Listen in to Pakistan People's Party, or as it's commonly known, the PPP chairperson, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, advising Nawaz Sharif to focus on Lahore.
तो ये तजवीज़ किया गया है कि दूसरे सूबे में जाके कद सीट के पीछे जो है वो मियाँ साहब को ये तकलीफ दिया गया कि वो खुद पहुंचे। मेरा तजवीज़ ये होगा कि वो लाहौर पे ही फोकस करें। वहाँ जो मुश्किलात है उनको एड्रेस करने की कोशिश करें और उससे शायद बेहतर रिजल्ट मिल सकते हैं.
Now, Bilal's verbal onslaught came as PMLN Supremo Nawaz Sharif visited Balochistan, where he met with the leaders of the Balochistan Awami Party, or the BAP. It is notable that the PPP and BAP were allies in the past, and the BAP has a winnable hold in the province. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, who had served as foreign minister alongside the PMLN's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, appears increasingly frustrated. Bhutto Zardari has repeatedly complained that the PPP is not getting a level playing field as the South Asian country prepares for the February 8th elections. Now, relations between the two have become so bitter that Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's party is now hinting to join hands with political forces loyal to jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan instead. PPP is indicating a possible alliance with Imran and other parties to keep its options open. Most experts believe the PMLN is the new favorite of the powerful military establishment. It sees the party as the only one that can counter the enduring popularity of Imran Khan. Remember, he served as Prime Minister from 2018 until his ouster in a no-confidence vote in April of 2022. The PPP was instrumental in bringing the no-confidence motion that unseated Khan last year. Clearly, the Game of Thrones in Pakistan politics is getting intense. Now, for more on this, we are being joined by our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik. Anas, welcome to the broadcast and thank you for joining us here. I want to ask you, for someone who is looking at Pakistan outside of Pakistan, how should one assess and decode this shift in politics?
Well, it's classical political alliance or statements ahead of the elections. We're in election season. Though the schedule is not out, we expect that to be out sometime in the first week of December. But with the date being agreed upon and being announced by the Election Commission, that is for the 8th of February, this is classical electioneering and statements coming in on the part of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the Pakistan People's Party and the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. Now, interestingly enough, the PMLN have now gone into an alliance with the Balochistan Awami Party, the BAP or BAP as we call it, and previously they had been criticizing the same Balochistan Awami Party. Now, it is also interesting to note that the BAP was previously in alliance with the Pakistan People's Party. So clearly, Game of Thrones, you rightly mentioned there, and the Pakistan People's Party has also hinted that they are open to doing a post-electoral alliance with the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the PTI, in case if something materializes. So clearly a shift there, but it is very interesting there on the position of the Pakistan People's Party. Ananya, and allow me to take less than 30 seconds to explain, because we've seen that other political parties such as the PMLN or the PTI, they usually bank on the powerful military establishment's support to be the king's party and then come into power, as is the case has been with Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in 2018, and it's now being predicted the same for the PMLN. But for the Pakistan People's Party, it has always been a matter of harping and banking on political forces and not going to the establishment to get into government, and that is why we're seeing such statements being given in from the party chair himself, the Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, who has asked Nawaz Sharif to focus on Lahore, that is number one, and then in one or many ways has hinted that they will be open to post-electoral alliance with any party, even that is the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Ananya?
All right, Anas, thank you for getting us all those latest updates from Islamabad. Now, the race to power in Taiwan has a united opposition. The two main opposition parties that vowed to renew talks with China have now agreed on a joint presidential ticket for the elections in January. In the polls, Vice President Lai Ching-te is the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's presidential candidate. Lai has almost consistently led opinion polls. To counter this, the main opposition parties Kuomintang, also known as KMT, and the Taiwan's People's Party, known as TPP, have come together to form a united opposition. Currently, the KMT's presidential candidate is Hua Yu-yi and Ko Wen-jae. They are the face of the TPP. Up next, the makeup for the presidential bid will be announced this Saturday.
今天大概是一个历史性的一刻，到底因为在台湾的历史上从来没有过联合政府，所以联合政府如何组织、如何运作，这个当然都是一个尝试。
为了让第三波民主的改革，我们协调出来两党合作的方式，在这几天就会有一个结果出来。不管这个结果如何，谁正谁负，我们共同携手合作，让我们中华民国这一块地都能够平安。
The polls in Taiwan are expected to significantly determine Taiwan's ties with the US and China. China has stepped up military and political pressure to press the island to accept its sovereignty claims. This also includes high-profile war games. Currently, the ruling party has a strong anti-China stance and has also claimed electoral interference from Beijing. But the new alliance is looking forward to normalizing ties with China through dialogue on an equal and dignified basis. Let's shift our focus to Spain now. The country's acting Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has begun his campaign to clinch a new 4-year term in a parliament vote. The bid comes amid anger after his party reached an agreement granting amnesty to Catalan separatists. The prospect of amnesty has brought thousands of opponents to the streets for 12 nights in a row. Now, citizens are calling the amnesty an assault on the rule of law. For almost 2 weeks, protesters gathered in 52 major cities across the country to show opposition to the plan. The conservative main opposition Popular Party and its allies are leading these protests. But Prime Minister Sanchez claims that the amnesty for Catalan separatists showed the Spanish constitution's strength. He also, in fact, pushed for unity in the interest of Spanish citizens.
La amnistía se va a aprobar bajo luz o con luz y taquígrafos, con total transparencia. Sí, va a ser debatida aquí, ¿no les parece a ustedes poco? Va a contar con todas las garantías jurídicas, con el voto mayoritario de esta Cámara democráticamente electa. Es decir, la amnistía no va a ser un ataque a la Constitución del 78, como dicen ustedes, sino todo lo contrario, será una muestra de su fortaleza y de su vigencia.
Acting Prime Minister Sanchez's chances of forming a new coalition government are bolstered after the agreement with a smaller party. Now, Sanchez seems to be set to retain power in Parliament next week with the newfound votes. The deal is with Together for Catalonia, also known as Junts, a group that is rallying for independence of the northeastern region of Catalonia. The Junts are headed by Carles Puigdemont, who fled Spain after leading a failed illegal secession bid in the 2017 year. The amnesty agreement signed could benefit Puigdemont and thousands of other people. Now, ahead of the investiture vote, Spanish police ramped up security at the Parliament building in Madrid. The prospect of amnesty has often led to clashes with police next to the Socialist Party headquarters in central Madrid. But that has not deterred protesters from camping outside the parliament. Protesters called out the 179 congressmen voting in the investiture as coup plotters. And now let's get you a global roundup of election stories. In India, Chhattisgarh state is all set for the second phase of elections on November 17th. Of the 90 assembly constituencies in the state, voting will be held in 70 constituencies spread over 22 districts on Friday. The first phase of election for 20 seats that was held on November 7th saw a high voter turnout of 78%. U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson publicly endorsed Donald J. Trump for the Republican presidential nomination. Johnson implied that he had endorsed Trump in the past as well. However, it is unclear when he did so. Johnson became Speaker just late last month when Kevin McCarthy was ousted by his fellow Republicans. Luxembourg's top diplomat, Jean Asselborn, is leaving his position as a foreign minister after the recent elections. He has been the country's top diplomat for nearly 20 years. Asselborn was first elected to parliament in 1984 on the socialist ticket. He became the foreign minister in 2004, a position he held till this week. We are wrapping up this edition. I'm Ananya Datta and I will be back tomorrow same time. So join the race to power.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.